What's up, everybody? Man back. Welcome to a brand new video, and today we're going to be doing another Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire news roundup. That's right, in this video we'll be continuing our chronological journey through the progression and development of Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire by discussing events that happened between August and September of 2023. If you're sitting here like, whoa, what is this dude talking about? The movie is already out. Why are we covering news from that long ago when the movie's already out? Hey, how's it going? You must be new here. I want to cover the chronological development of this movie, and so I cover it in these kind of monthly little recaps that I do. And in this one, we're going to be covering events from August to September of 2023. So let's jump into it. Starting out, I wanted to show off Hub Herman's legendary animated Godzilla art. I don't think I said his name right, but you know what? This is great art. It's got a very Godzilla 1998 the animated series style to it, but also obviously is the legendary Godzilla. I just think it's so neat, and it gives me big Monarch G-Team vibes, the anime that O'Shea Jackson Jr. and Chris Mirjahangir want to launch inside the Monsterverse. This gives me big that vibes. I love it. This is very classic Godzilla the cartoon stuff. I Am Terrell made this awesome, almost analog horror type vintage Godzilla encounter animation. I just thought it was so sick. It tells the brief story of a nuclear bomb awakening Godzilla who sinks some ships and then makes landfall. He attacks high tension wires. It's very Godzilla 1954, but the imagery is clearly inspired by the Monsterverse. I just thought this was so dope. There's so many cool little details in it, and it's a really well done piece, ending with the big nuke against Godzilla. It's almost like a little summary of the emergence of Godzilla in the Monsterverse itself. I just thought it was so cool. Godzilla 1998 is having a 4K Steelbook re-release. Nothing really more to say about it other than that it's nice to see a really high quality master of the movie being out there on the market. The fact that it's a Steelbook is pretty awesome. I always love to collect the Steelbooks, so that was pretty neat. Jordan Vogt Roberts, the director of Kong Skull Island, visits the Godzilla in Hibiya. This is actually in the Godzilla Square in Hibiya. This artwork was done by Shinji Nishikawa, the concept artist who has worked on many Godzilla films dating all the way back to Godzilla vs. Biollante. And this is actually tucked away in like the back corner of a hallway in a department store. It's actually kind of hard to find. I was able to visit it when I went to Tokyo, but it's kind of hard to find. Speaking of Monarch G-Team, Chris Mirjahangir of Toho Kingdom, one of the two people responsible for Monarch G-Team, he of course is working alongside O'Shea Jackson Jr., who played Barnes in Godzilla King of the Monsters, shouted out my video on Monarch G-Team. So I wanted to take a moment to bring that up so that you could go check that video out if you haven't. Monarch G-Team is basically the ultimate fan project that we've always wanted to see, except they're trying to do it legit. O'Shea Jackson Jr. not only was in Godzilla King of the Monsters, but is a lifelong Godzilla fan, and he wants to bring his love for Godzilla and his love for anime together in a Monsterverse-inspired animated installment, and everything we've seen from it just looks so cool. So I wanted to bring that up. KDM also shouted out the video, which was really awesome, so go check all that out if you haven't already. And tweet about Monarch G-Team so that Legendary sees it, so that Warner Bros. Sees it, so that they know we want this thing to exist. That's the best thing we can do to try and get this thing made. Hiya revealed their exquisite basic female Muto from Godzilla 2014. This is a 6-inch articulated figure. It's magnificent. Where was this in 2014? Oh my god, it is incredible. I really love this thing. It runs you $51, which is really standard price for all of Hiya's stuff. I love that they did this. I love that they went and they did the Muto in the first place. I just love that we have Muto stuff now. It was so hard to find Muto stuff back in 2014 that was decent quality or scale, so seeing this is just awesome. I love that they did that. Hiya also revealed their Godzilla 2021 exquisite Atomic Breath translucent version. It's pretty much the same as their other Godzilla, except the dorsal spines have been swapped out to translucent blue and his mouth glows blue now. It's very similar to the kind of stuff that all of the toy variants wind up doing. We have some more Hiya Heat Ray Godzilla 2021 promo images, so there you go. Spiral Studios revealed their Godzilla 2014 standard version. Of course, Spiral Studios releases some of the highest quality Godzilla models on the market. These are pretty large typically. This one just looks awesome. I love the 2014 design getting some love. He actually looks a little bit slimmer than he did in the movie there. And this runs you about $590. They then followed it up by revealing that they weren't stopping there. They were also going to do the Heat Ray version, which is $620. This Godzilla statue is obviously very similar to the other, except he's got the spines lit up blue, and it's not like just a standard Monsterverse light up. It is the 2014 spines. The spines themselves are what's glowing, not the eyes, it's not cracking through the body, it's just the spines, and I love that. I love the faithfulness of that. Spiral Studios also then teased a Muto Prime, which was coming out. Jinshin Mushi, for those of you who want to call it by its scientific name. The Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong issue number 2 had some covers teased and some details revealed. Some cool artwork featuring Wonder Woman, Batman, Godzilla, and Kong all fighting, and then some panels from the issue teasing this fight between Godzilla and Superman, which is really what they were all hyping up. The bio for issue 2 of Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong reads, Legendary's Monsterverse has been unleashed on the DC Universe, and cities are threatened across the globe, from Metropolis to Gotham to Themyscira. The Justice League scrambles to protect the citizens from these raging titans. What role has the Legion of Doom played in all of this monster madness, and how will the tide of battle change when a hero falls? It's Superman. If you haven't read the issue, it's Superman. Not only were they hyping up the fight between Superman and Godzilla in issue 1 of this comic, but when it finally happened in issue 2, it's just clear that this was like the base point for the entire comic, was getting Godzilla and Superman to duke it out. We have some variant cover reveals, again, most of these hyping up that battle. And then I like the ones that also feature Kong, that's cool. I really like some of the issue 3 covers, so we have some additional Justice League vs. Godzilla vs. Kong covers and details for issue 3 as well. And again, these kind of tease this fight between Godzilla and Superman, although by that point it's already happened. And then I love this one of Kong and the Warbat fighting with Green Arrow in the foreground. That's dope. And then Godzilla in Gotham City, that's just amazing. So basically the details we got here is that it deals with the devastating consequences following Superman and Godzilla's fight, and meanwhile Supergirl encounters Kong on Skull Island while Wonder Woman takes on Behemoth in Themyscira. I'm glad that some of the other Monsterverse titans were getting some play here, and it's just cool that Behemoth was involved in the first place. And then again, the Legion of Doom is plotting their next move, so it's a classic Justice League story. The Legion of Doom is always behind everything. Or so it seems. We also had a teased upcoming fight in that comic. Of course, the full comic is already out now, but I'm again covering things chronologically, featuring the fight between Batman and Camazotz. It's cool to see Camazotz getting more play. Camazotz, of course, appears in Kingdom Kong, so it's cool that Camazotz is crossing over into more comics, and of course, having Batman fight the Bat Titan, that just makes sense, doesn't it? Everybody is just desperate for another Godzilla video game. Everybody wants one so badly. I want another good Kong one, personally, after that 2005 game was fantastic, but I'm also wanting another Godzilla one too. I love the Godzilla PS4 game, though. I was one of the people who was happy with that one. So we have some additional details on the 7 Levels Monsterverse game. So this is supposed to be a Godzilla vs. Kong game. We got some details on it. They were trying to raise some more funds to develop the game. It seems like they maybe bit off a lot more than they could chew here. It is an untitled game for PC and consoles. At the time, they were granted permission to release the game everywhere except for China, so tough luck if you're in China. And then they needed to issue some shares to raise some capital to develop the game after running into some challenges in the advanced stages of production. And while they are in an advanced stage of production, it still requires constant support, development, but they're claiming that expectations are exceeding their predictions and that this game's going to be fantastic. The estimated completion date is to be determined. We have no idea. All we know about the game itself is that it's set shortly after Godzilla vs. Kong, and players have to survive in the ruined city of, I believe, Hong Kong, presumably. They have to use the strength of the Titans to pull this off. I have no idea what that means, whether, what was that? Like you're tricking Kong into getting out of the city, or where does this take place? Is it immediately after the Mechagodzilla fight? Are Godzilla and Kong still in the city? I don't know. It combines action, adventure, and platforming games. Kind of sounds to me like it's going to be one of those like movie tie-in games that is coming out way too late because the movie's years old by this point. But it kind of sounds like City Shrouded in Shadow is kind of what it sounds like. The survival horror game where you're trying to navigate through a city while Godzilla's doing a big battle in it. Godzilla x Kong was delayed amidst the writer's strikes, originally pushed back to April 12th. Of course, we do know it was eventually moved back up, but originally it was slated to come out on March 15th. So it was pushed back about a month to make way for those writer strikes because, of course, the studios were not wanting to pay their people properly. So they did eventually push the movie back up to where it did come out, I believe, what was that, March 29th? And everything was hunky-dory after that. We got the movie and it was great. Am I the first person to say that term this year? Probably. The Making of Godzilla x Kong Insights Edition is a BTS book which will be released on May 14th. It is $60. It's like the art of Godzilla x Kong The New Empire. It's always, those books are filled with behind-the-scenes details, concept art, all sorts of great stuff. And this one's going to be a juicy one because we'll get to see the developmental process of how they arrived on Godzilla's evolved form. Godzilla x Kong The New Empire had a couple test screenings over the summer. The original test screening ran about 122 minutes. It was mostly positive. That's a little longer than the actual movie itself. And while it was mostly positive, there was a monster in those test screenings that wasn't totally received very well. Godzilla x Kong then held its next test screening on August 5th, and this was more in line with the version of the movie we got. So, in recent interviews with Adam Wingard, I feel like he's trying to save face a little bit here, but he's still telling the truth as far as I understand. And you know, look, take what I'm saying with a grain of salt. I'm getting this information from a third party that that third party may be wrong, but I'm inclined to believe them because everything else I really heard from them turned out to be true. As I understand it personally, the original version of Godzilla x Kong, by the way, spoilers, the original script of Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire featured Mothra pretty prevalently. She was a little more prominent in the film. I don't know how much more she had to do, but I think she had a little bit more to do as well. Now, they weren't able to get the rights to Mothra. The studio really wasn't willing to pay for that, so they pivoted and changed it to a monster called Phosphora or Phosphora. This was kind of like a phoenix monster, but also not really. We've seen a leaked version of the design. I'm not going to show it off. It was a little more Egyptian inspired, and it played into the Egypt angle of the movie a little more. And it's also why in the film, Mothra just appears out of nowhere, because it was supposed to be a different monster with a different set of abilities. Test screening audiences, as I understand, were kind of underwhelmed by that, being like, hey, that thing was kind of like Mothra. Why wouldn't you just use Mothra? Which then Adam Wingard was able to use as ammunition to be like, hey guys, look, I wanted Mothra, they want Mothra, let's do Mothra. And the studio went, all right, let's do it. And so they swapped the creature to Mothra. That's why in the final version of the film, every time they say Mothra's name, it's an 80-yard line. They don't say it on screen. Mothra's insert shots are kind of like odd. When they cut away to the prophecy of Mothra on the wall, it's like a weird standalone cutaway with nobody else in the shot because they had to do that later. You can actually still see Phosphorus carvings in the background of that sequence. And the reason that Mothra feels forced into Godzilla x Kong is because they wrote a different monster and then pivoted it back to Mothra. As I understand it, while Wingard is telling the truth that it was always supposed to be Mothra, they did make the change to make it a different monster, and then all they did was just swap back to Mothra rather than rewrite or refilm those sequences to incorporate Mothra a little more naturally. That's why she kind of feels out of place in the movie. But overall, the test screenings are positive, and of course that did lead to the movie's release, where all the reviews have been, for the most part, pretty positive. Other than critics. Critics are a little more mixed on it, but audiences are loving this movie. Godzilla x Kong's first banner was spotted at a toy fair. Originally, all we saw was the back of Godzilla and Kong, Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire. That's where we saw the logo revealed for the first time. And then we saw this image of Kong. He's looking great here, floating around in that Hollow Earth anti-gravity field. And then we get Godzilla here, that 2019 Godzilla design, just looking fantastic. Love that Godzilla. And it's interesting that they weren't advertising the evolved Godzilla yet. Like I said, this was a toy fair where this all happened. It was behind closed doors. They showed off the Playmates toys there. And this looks great. And obviously you can see the floating rocks in the background played into the movie because we had that big collapsing gravity fight sequence. While Childish Landino did report on some of the Playmates rumors that were shown during this, and some of them obviously happened, like Mothra being in the movie, and they reported that Mothra was on display there, KDM confirmed that those descriptions are fake. That wasn't what was on display at the toy fair. It was probably more in line with the first wave of Playmates figures we actually got. And then whoever cooked up this rumor, which Childish was just sharing, he wasn't creating it. Whoever cooked up those rumors obviously put the giant bird in there and Mothra in there because they were making stuff up based on the test screening leaks. Obviously the information from the test screening leaked. That's why some YouTubers with like 500,000 subscribers were able to spoil the movie in their thumbnails, putting Mothra in their thumbnails at least 5 months ago. It's because they were getting information from the test screen leaks, and that's why here in the toy display they said that Mothra was there, and that's why they said a giant bird, because obviously this person leaking this was referring to Phosphora, who was originally reported to be a falcon-like monster, kind of in the vein of Kong's big hawk from the Skull Island anime. But it wasn't true. KDM shot that down. Wasn't true. And that was all the events that happened in those months that I said we were covering, August and September of 2023. We're getting close to caught up, guys. I'm excited. As always, I want to give a huge thank you to my patrons over on Patreon. If you want to check out the Patreon, you can use the link in the description below. By supporting the Patreon, you are directly supporting this channel. It is the most direct way to support this channel, and it makes sure that I can continue to make videos like this for you guys. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I will see you guys next time for the next one. D-Man out.